In this series of videos, we're going to be creating a simple platformer that looks a little bit like this. We'll be able to collect some things, jump on some enemies, move around, collect a whole bunch of items. In the top right corner, you can see there's a UI which is slightly unfinished, and we'll look at creating some obstacles like this, as well as the spike pits down here with the death animation. So this here is hopefully going to be enjoyable for you. It's going to teach you some things about how Godot works, and we're going to go into a very broad overview of how it all works with introducing things like signals and a lot of other stuff in there, variables, a lot of the code, and we'll get into that. Now, I've got an ultra wide monitor, so I've tried to set this up so that you can see everything, and it's zoomed in, so it's not like ultra wide on your 1920 thing, but that means that I've had to use some software that will pan and scan around. So I just have to be aware of not moving the mouse too much. If this is an issue with motion sickness, please let me know in the comments and I can try and find an alternative solution. And this is the second time I've actually recorded this series, because the first one I sounded like I was underwater. So there is a starter project that I have created which will have a whole lot of files in it, and I need to check the license on some of these. So if you go to download this starter file and these things are not here, then I will put a link to them below where you can download them. There may be restrictions around what I can and can't distribute, so I'll have to have a look here. But what we're going to do first is we are going to create our character. So in Godot, we have up the top here, we have 2D scene, 3D scene, user interface, other node, and this is the scene. Now, if you're familiar with Unity, this is sort of like a Unity scene and a prefab mixed into one. So you can have scenes within scenes within scenes, unlike in Unity where you have like the level scene and then you put prefabs into that scene and they're kind of separate. In here, they're one and the same. So first thing we're going to do is create an other node, and it's going to bring up this create new node window, which we are going to type in character body 2D. Character body 2D will show us character body 2D, and we're going to click create on that. When we click create on that, we'll get a new node up here, and it's going to give us a little warning. This warning says this node has no shape, so it can't collide or interact with other objects. So we need to give it a collision shape. So we can click plus here, and then we're going to give it, I'll just bring this over here, hopefully it remembers. We are going to type in collision shape and add a collision shape to it. We'll click create, and it's going to give us a collision shape. Now we can see on the right hand side, I'll just make these a little bit bigger so I don't have to scroll as far. On the right hand side over here, we can see that we have shape, and shape is currently set to empty, but we're going to set it to a capsule shape 2D. And then in here, we can zoom in and bring that so we can see it. Right now on our character thing here, we're also going to add in, for now, an animated sprite 2D. But we want to make that a child of character body. And we are also going to add in an animation player. Animation player, click create. So this is what we need here to make our basic character. On animated sprite, it's giving us a warning, it has no sprite frames. So on the right hand side, we select animation and sprite frames, and we want a new sprite frames. For now, we're actually going to just leave this. We're not going to put any animation in it at the moment. We'll do that in the next video. But for now, we're just going to get this moving around. So we've got our character body here. It has an animated sprite and a collision shape, which will deal with the physics, and an animation player, which we'll use later. Now you might say, why are we using an animated sprite and an animation player, especially if you have done any Godot, because these are usually distinct. Well, if we go to, at the top here, asset library, and we type in animation and hit enter, we're going to be using a plugin called Animated Sprite to Animation Player Converter. The animation player is much more powerful than the animated sprite. It lets you do a lot of really cool things, which we'll see when we get up to it. But setting up animations in it is actually very time consuming. Whereas setting up animations in an animated sprite is very simple. So what we can do is use the simplicity of the animated sprite, and then bring it across so that we can use the complexity of the animation player without having to actually use the animation player to set up our animations. Now this is already, if you downloaded my starter project, this add-on is already installed, but if not, you need to click on this, download it, and then go to editor, editor settings, nope, project settings, and then plugins, and that should be enabled. Now you may also be getting an error because of this auto load script here, which I've removed for the project. If you get that error, you can just ignore it. We will add that auto load file in later. So we go back to character body 2D and we're going to add a script. This script is going to be, my mistake, first, cancel that. We're going to save this. Control S. I'm going to save scene as, and we're going to create a folder and call this scenes. And in that folder, I'm going to save this as player. Now you'll notice that it said character body 2D down there. That is because it will name it whatever the default root node for the scene is. So I'm just going to rename it player. Proper practice is all lowercase with underscores. Up here though, naming this stuff, it's camel case starting with a capital. So we're going to call that player. The rest of the things we don't need to rename for now. Right, so let's add a script. This is the script button. And then we're going to add player. The template, we are going to use the built-in template. So if that wasn't ticked, tick it, character body 2D basic movement, and click create. Now this here will bring up the script. And hopefully, because I can't actually see where my window is zoomed in, I am going to try and make sure that you can see the whole thing. So at the top there, we've got extends character body 2D. And then we've got constant speed equals 300. We're going to change these constants. We don't want them to be constant. There's no reason for them to be constant here, especially since we're going to be trialing the speed and velocity and testing things in our game. So we can actually delete these for now. Or we can leave them because we'll just change a few words in them. Everything else we are going to use and modify. So let's go from the top. And I've been told that it's really difficult to follow along with code while I'm talking, but you can just mute me for a few minutes if you want to follow along, and then come back and listen to the explanation, because it's much easier for me to explain it while I'm actually typing it. So we're going to add at export var speed equals 300. That's going to export the speed variable to the inspector on the right, and we can look at that later. Second line, we're going to export var, we'll delete the word const, jump velocity equals -400. So similar to Python, you don't need to specify what type of data it is, but like Java, you do have to declare that it is a variable. You can specify the type, and we'll do that in the next one just as an example. At export var acceleration, we'll make this float equals 15.0. So that there is going to only allow a float value to be put into that. The reason I'm typing these in all caps is mainly for simplicity, because it's already down here as there. But generally, proper practice is, well, let's change them. I'm going to change them to lower speed, lowercase, the jump velocity, because it's bad practice unless we are actually using a constant. You just have to change the variables down the bottom. You may end up getting errors when this happens. We're going to add export var jumps equals 1. Let's just change these down here for now as well, so we don't get the errors. Times speed and times speed. That'll get rid of those errors. Jumps equals 1. Then we're going to make an enumerator. Now this here is a collection. So it's essentially a dictionary that assigns numbers sequentially to whatever we put in it, to the keywords. So the keyword idle has the value of 0, running has the value of 1, jump up has the value of 2, and so on and so forth. These are going to be our player states, and we're also going to use it to switch between animations later on. It's not the only way you could do this. This is just one way that I have done it. We're going to make a variable. This is not going to be exported, and it's going to equal state.idle. So the player is going to start in the idle animation. We are going to make some references. So in the node tree, we have animated sprite 2D and we have collision 2D, and we want to make some references to some of these things and the animation player. And to do that, we're just going to type @onReady var animator equals $animated sprite 2D. That is the animator, yep. And onReady var animation player equals $animated sprite. Note, we want that to be animation player. Animation player. And then we got the variable that gets the gravity that was already built in. And then further down, we have got the physics process delta. So we're going to leave that all there, and we're going to make some changes in here. So if we look at this code, we've got if not is on floor, velocity.y plus equals gravity times delta. So if the player is not on the floor, then the velocity.y plus equals gravity times delta. That is going to increase the player's y position, or the velocity, and it's going to make them move down. Essentially, this is adding gravity if they're not on the floor. The second one, if input.isAction just pressed, UI accept, and is on floor. So if they are on the floor, we're going to increase the jump velocity. So that's all right. If they're on the floor and they push jump, then we are going to increase that jump velocity. We will change that. At the moment it says UI accept, which is the spacebar or the enter key, but we will change that to a custom jump key later. Then we're going to make it say, and this is where a lot of the changes come in. I've just got my little script here. I'm used to having dual monitors, so going to the ultra wide is a bit of a change. So we've got here, where did we get up to? All right, here we go. If direction velocity.x equals, and we're going to use this lerp function, move towards. You can see that it's below. What it does is it calculates a difference in value. So we're going to go from velocity.x, its current velocity. We're going to go to speed. And we're going to move there by direction times acceleration. So what this is going to do, instead of just immediately moving to the speed value, it's going to move the velocity of the x position, the x velocity of the player towards the speed value by the acceleration multiplied by the direction. The direction is going to be either left or right, depending on what this line here says the player is doing. But if they're not pushing any button, we just want to move them back towards 0 by, we could say by, well, say by acceleration divided by 2. There's a little bit of friction there. We could have a friction variable at the top. This will do for now. Then what we need to do is run the move and slide function. The move and slide function will take the velocity, which is a built-in property of every single character body in Godot, and it will apply that velocity to the object. So let's go ahead and almost test this. We're going to create a new scene, and this new scene is going to just be a 2D scene, and we're going to call it world. And we're going to save this scene in the scenes folder as world. Then we're going to create a new static body, 2D, with a collision shape on it. And this collision shape is going to be a rectangle. We'll go back to here. And we can switch to the 2D view at the top. Now this collision shape here, the static body, we don't really need to worry too much about this. We want to move this collision shape somewhere in our scene. I can just move it to here. That'll do for now. And then we're going to go ahead back to world. We're going to scroll down here to our scenes folder, and the player scene we're going to drag into here. So there's our player. There's our static body collision shape. And finally, we're going to go debug visible collision shapes. Save all of this and hit play over here. So this is the play button, the clapper button, F6 on the keyboard will also do this. And then we should be able to move our character around. Space will jump and our character moves. Now there's not actually any sprites there, so if you didn't see anything, if you've just got a gray window, make sure that you turn on debug visible collision shapes so you can actually see these collision shapes in there. Very good for debugging. Project settings, and we're going to go to our input map, and you'll see I've got some errors down the bottom here regarding the game manager, so I did say just ignore those. Now you'll see that I've already got input maps in here, left, right, and jump. In fact, you may already have them as well, but especially if you've gone with the starter project. So let's say I'll show you how to do them. Left, we're going to delete that one. We're going to add a new action called left, and then we can add a new key. I'm going to push the A key for left, and I'm also going to add the left arrow key. So there's my definitions. If we go back to our script, we can change these to say jump, left, and right. Save all of that. Test our world. And there we go. It still works. I got caught there for a sec, but it does work. And oh, that maximum. I'm not sure what happened there. Left, right. Direction times acceleration. Move towards velocity.x by 0 times acceleration divided by 2. That should be fine. I'm just going to turn that off for now. And let's just put speed in there, because it looked like I got some kind of funny error where it just sped up really fast. So let's test that. That's fine. Yeah, and then he suddenly stops. He goes really quick to the left and off the screen. So there's a little bit of a problem here. Let's see if we can figure out what that would be. If direction, velocity equals x, I'm just wondering if I've got the right script. Yeah. Move and slide. I think I know. Hold on, let's see. Input, get axis left, right. Project settings, right, left. Well, that is odd. I've never had that error before. Hopefully you don't get that error. If it is an error that I can figure out, then I'll look at it in the next video. But for now, we've got our movement done, and we're going to look at adding some animations in the next one. If I can't replicate or note what that error would be, it doesn't look like anything is different with my script that I'm looking at in front of me and this one. So we'll leave it at that and just put it down to something's wrong with my keyboard.